Now, here's the first principle of leading like Jesus. Number one is the principle of identification, and that means this: know who I am. If I'm going to be a leader, if you're going to be a leader, I must know who I am. Now, this is the starting point of leadership. Warren Bennis, the professor up at USC, who's written a couple dozen books on leadership, calls it self-awareness. And he says leaders are very aware of themselves. They're aware of their strengths and their weaknesses. They accept their strengths, they admit their weaknesses. You see, we're all a bundle of both. You have some great strengths. So do I. You have some great weaknesses. So do I. We're all a bundle of both strengths and weaknesses, and leaders are aware of both. And they know who they are. Now, Jesus had no doubt about who he was. And today, as we look at these 7 principles of leadership, we're going to take direct quotes from Jesus Christ as we see what he teaches about leadership. Now, Jesus knew who he was. Notice these verses out of the Bible. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. I am the Son of God. I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. I am the bread of life. Now, I just put a few examples down there. 18 different times in the Bible, Jesus defines himself. He says, I am, and then he tells us who he is. He didn't depend on anybody else to define him. He knew exactly who he was, and that's the starting point of leadership. Leaders don't look to other people for validation. Look at the next verse where Jesus says this: I testify on my own behalf. Now, what does Jesus mean when he says that? I testify on my own behalf. He's saying this: I don't depend on the opinion of other people to validate me. I don't need their approval to tell me who I am. I don't need anybody else to tell me what I came to do. He says, I know my story and I tell it. Now, this is very, very important. So listen. If you don't know who God made you to be, you're going to fall into 3 very common traps. The first one is you're going to allow other people to mold you into their expectations. If you don't know who you are, other people will be glad to tell you. God has a plan for your life, but have you noticed so does everybody else? And your parents and your friends and your husband and your wife and everybody has expectations, your boss and others, that they want to put on you. And if you don't know who you are and who God made you to be, you're going to be manipulated your entire life.